It's Thursday, May 29th, 2025. Another random court says the president has no power over anything ever. Doge is saying goodbye to Elon Musk and trying to clear up misconceptions about the big, beautiful bill. That's next on the AM Update.
The Epstein thing, you dealt with Maria, you said, as far as you know, he killed himself.
I'm telling you, he killed himself.
It could be big or it could be beautiful. But I don't know if it could be both.
I'm not happy about certain aspects of it, but I'm thrilled by other aspects of it. That's the way they go.
We reject the Biden administration's legacy of death by 1,000 enforcement actions.
The Ivy League, I'm sorry to say, has beclowned themselves in recent months, and Harvard has led the beclowning.
The U.S. Court of International Trade ruled Wednesday that President Trump overstepped his authority over tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. The court wrote, quote, "The Constitution assigns Congress the exclusive powers to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, and to regulate commerce with foreign nations. The question in the two cases before the court is whether the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977 delegates these powers to the president in the form of authority to impose unlimited tariffs on goods from nearly every country in the world. This court found that the Trump administration and Trump himself has no power to do that. It didn't lay out what power he actually does have. You just can't do it the way that he did it, or at all. Have you ever heard of the U.S. Court of International Trade? Yes, that exists in New York City. This is just the most recent example. As Stephen Miller, White House Deputy Chief of Staff, said in reaction to this news, just a coup that's run amok now. And as I said earlier this week, I told you this was coming. They are getting more and more emboldened. The more time that goes by, the more examples of the Trump administration just instead of just saying no, just kind of trying to play ball and trying to play by the rules of the judicial branch of government, the more and more emboldened these rogue judges and rogue courts are going to become and are becoming. Also, yesterday evening, on the heels of announcing he's going to be restricting visas, courtesy of the United States, on foreign officials who tried to tamp down on Americans' free speech. Yeah, that was something that Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced yesterday morning. Last night, Secretary of State Rubio also announced he's going to begin revoking the visas of Chinese students, including those with connections to the Chinese Communist Party or studying in critical fields. I think I saw there's over 250,000 Chinese students in American universities and just basically a few hundred Americans in Chinese universities. That's a yo. FBI Director Kash Patel joined Fox News and Bret Baier last night and doubled and tripled down on his assertion that Jeffrey Epstein did indeed kill himself.
But there is a lot of conspiracy theories out there.
There are.
The Epstein thing, you dealt with Maria, you said, as far as you know, he killed himself.
I'm telling you, he killed himself.
The other thing on the internet is the Epstein files. What's the answer to that?
The answer to that is the same as everything else. I'm not going to withhold information from the American public ever, but I'm also not going to rush to get it out there in a format in which they can't rely on it. So on the Epstein matter or any other matters, we are diligently working on that, and it takes time to go through years of investigations, years of political maneuvering, and years of cover-up to get the American people what they deserve. And that's what I'm going to give them on everything.
Yeah. And if somebody says, how long is that going to take? You know, we always see investigations in Washington that end up in blue ribbon commissions, and it doesn't seem like anything comes from it. Do you think actual prosecutions will come from some of this stuff?
I think from some of this stuff, when we go back and look at things like the pipe bomber case, the cocaine in the White House, January 6th, and Crossfire Hurricane, the prosecutorial decisions will lay at the Department of Justice. But we are rigorously investigating them, and I think we've developed some great leads. And I also think we're not going to wait for any blue ribbon commissions. That's up to Congress. If they want to do that, that's totally fine. They're a coordinate branch of government. But we've got answers coming on all these matters.
FBI Director Kash Patel saying, yes, indeed, I'm telling you, this is a quote, I'm telling you, he killed himself, referring to Jeffrey Epstein, but continuing to promise answers on the Epstein files and other matters like the J6 pipe bomber. At this point, I don't know what to say. It just boggles the mind. All of the things that we learned in the aftermath of Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. All of the things that just happen to be broken or not working correctly or not followed correctly in terms of protocols, all of those just happen to line up on the day that Jeffrey Epstein apparently killed himself with paper sheets. It just still doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. And I still do not believe that he killed himself. Elon Musk is exiting Doge. He confirmed that last night on his platform, X, and he said he thanked President Trump for the opportunity and says the work of Doge will go on without him. He told CBS News he is disappointed in the big, beautiful bill and that it doesn't cut spending. Now, there are some misconceptions. We'll talk about those in a little bit. I think I'm not really sure if they're misconceptions or excuses, but here's Elon Musk on CBS News.
I was disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the Doge team is doing.
I actually thought that when this big, beautiful bill came along. I mean, everything he's done on Doge gets wiped out in the first year.
I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both.
President Trump was asked about Elon Musk's criticism of the big, beautiful bill and had this in reaction.
We have to get a lot of votes. We can't be cutting. We need to get a lot of support, and we have a lot of support. We had to get it through the House. The House was, we have no Democrats. If it's up to the Democrats, they'll take the 65% increase. If that doesn't get approved, this country is going to have a 65% increase in taxes and lots of other problems, big problems, almost bigger than that. But we'll have a 65% increase as opposed to the largest tax cut in the history of our country. We will be negotiating that bill, and I'm not happy about certain aspects of it, but I'm thrilled by other aspects of it. That's the way they go. It's very big. It's the big, beautiful bill, but the beautiful is because of all of the things we have. The biggest thing being, I would say, the level of tax cutting that we're going to be doing.
That is President Trump responding to Elon Musk, the newly departed head of Doge, responding to his criticisms of the big, beautiful bill, saying that he's not really happy with some of the things that are in this bill, but he's thrilled with other things, especially the tax cuts. And I think that's a pretty fair response to Musk. And there is I'm not really sure if I can put my finger on it, maybe wagon circling, maybe clarification. I'm going to give the people involved here the benefit of the doubt because one of the people involved is Stephen Miller, and he's been one of President Trump's best appointments so far in the White House. Some clarifications as to what the Senate can actually do with this bill. This is a budget reconciliation bill. They're nicknaming the big, beautiful bill. Here's what Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller has said a couple of times, most recently the other day. Quote, Doge cuts are to discretionary spending. Example, the federal bureaucracy. Under Senate budget rules, you cannot cut discretionary spending, only mandatory spending, in a reconciliation bill, which is on the table here. So Doge cuts would have to be done through what is known as a rescissions package or an appropriations bill. The big, beautiful bill is not an annual budget bill and does not fund the departments of the government. It does not finance our agencies or federal programs. Instead, it includes the single largest welfare reform in American history, along with the largest tax cut and reform in American history, the most aggressive energy exploration in American history, and the strongest border bill in American history, all while reducing the deficit. That's the takeaway of Stephen Miller, White House Deputy Chief of Staff. Also, House Speaker Mike Johnson continues to circle the wagons around the big, beautiful bill, which passed his chamber last week, and continues to prop up Doge. I think reading between the lines here, the White House, along with Republican leadership in Congress, are starting to feel a little bit of pressure from their base regarding Doge and cutting the size of government. Here's what House Speaker Mike Johnson posted. Elon Musk and the entire Doge team have done an incredible job, an incredible work exposing waste, fraud, and abuse across the federal government, from the insanity of USAID's spending to finding over 12 million people on Social Security over the age of 120. The House is eager and ready to act on Doge's findings so we can deliver more cuts to big government that President Trump wants and the American people demand. We will do that in two ways. Number one, when the White House sends its rescissions package to the House, we will act quickly by passing legislation to codify the cuts. The House will use the appropriations process, number 2, to swiftly implement President Trump's 2026 budget. So they're waiting on a rescissions bill to be sent to them from the White House. My understanding is that kind of already has been sent over. It's about $9 billion. It would defund USAID, I think NPR. So a very small drop in the bucket. But it's directly, these are programs that are directly opposed to President Trump's base. So you'd think that would be pretty easy to get through, at least the U.S. House. Maybe some circling the wagons, maybe some actual real clarification there on just what the big, beautiful bill does. When we come back, the FBI, some good news out of the FBI. They are opening an investigation into Christian animus in Seattle. J.D. Vance on crypto, and the Tates are looking at prison time, maybe? They've been charged with more sex-related crimes. That's coming up next. Dan Bongino, Deputy FBI Director, announced this week the agency has opened an investigation into allegations of targeted violence against religious groups at the Seattle concert. This follows that incident we told you about earlier this week on Sunday, in which Mayday USA, a Christian group, held a permitted concert at Cal Anderson Park, in which drew Antifa counter-protesters who then violently attacked the Christians. Following the attack, we told you, of course, Mayor Bruce Harrell sided with the violent Antifa degenerates. Bongino posted on X shortly afterwards, quote, "We have asked our team to fully investigate allegations of targeted violence against religious groups at the Seattle concert. Freedom of religion isn't a suggestion." Good job, Dan Bongino, Deputy Director at the FBI, making it known to any more would-be violent Antifa degenerates you can't just pick on Christians. Vice President J.D. Vance spoke at a crypto conference yesterday and discussed just how much the administration of Trump is changing policy when it comes to that space as opposed to the Biden administration.
Now, this is my vow to every single person here. You will never see this administration trying to handicap your community or diminish the impact it's had on the economy. Instead, we reject the Biden administration's legacy of death by 1,000 enforcement actions. We reject regulators. Maybe the most important thing that we did for this community, we reject regulators and we fired Gary Gensler, and we're going to fire everybody like him. And we know that people like Gary Gensler, the game that they played is that under the pretense of consumer protection, they attacked every single effort to democratize our financial markets, and that is over. America. I grew up in a working class family. I believe that America is a place where anyone should be able to make a fortune, no matter where you grew up, what degree you may or may not have. And in recent years, I'm hard-pressed to think of a better place to do so than right here in the digital assets industry.
So that is J.D. Vance, Vice President at the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas just yesterday. Earlier this week, President Donald Trump's media company said that institutional investors will buy $2.5 billion in the company's stock, with the proceeds going to build up a Bitcoin reserve. About 50 institutional investors will put up $1.5 billion in the private placement for common shares in the company and another $1 billion for convertible senior notes. Trump media says it intends to use the proceeds for the creation of a Bitcoin treasury. Interesting developments. Over in the United Kingdom, the Tate brothers are in trouble. The United Kingdom's Crown Prosecution Services charged brothers Andrew and Tristan Tate with rape, human trafficking, and additional accusations, Sky News first reported. Andrew Tate faces 10 charges, including accusations of actual bodily harm, controlling prostitution for gain, which are connected to 3 women. Tristan faces 11 charges, all stemming from one alleged victim. CPS authorized the charges in January of 2024 after receiving a file of information on the alleged crimes from the UK's Bedfordshire police. That's according to a CPS spokesperson. The Tate brothers allegedly committed the acts between 2012 and 2015. The Tates also faced charges in Romania in June of 2023. Prior to those charges, officials arrested, jailed, and subsequently released the brothers and placed them on house arrest. Romania placed further geographic restrictions on Andrew Tate, forbidding him from leaving the country. I just want to say this. I'm not a fan of the Tates at all. In fact, in many ways, I oppose them. I mean, they are the Genghis Khan school of masculinity. They are the opposite, actually the inverse of Mike Pence's furrowed brow, pious eunuch university when it comes to masculinity. I mean, there are two ditches. There's two ditches there. So I want to say that first. I would also caution you that I don't like the Tates for different reasons than places like the government of the United Kingdom don't like the Tates. So I would let this play out a little bit longer. And now here's this. Mike Rowe joined News Nation and Chris Cuomo to discuss Harvard, the Ivy League, and just what it would take to encourage more students and workers to pursue the trades. Listen to this.
The Ivy League, I'm sorry to say, has beclowned themselves in recent months, and Harvard has led the beclowning. Part of what I love about the president's post is the fact that it's going to force conversations like this one. And a lot of taxpayers, Chris, for the first time, are going to realize that the Harvard Corporation is sitting on a $54 billion endowment. Their president is currently screaming that this post and the idea that they could lose their tax-exempt status and some of these grants and tax money, the idea that that could happen are, in his words, unconstitutional. Now, I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but I think he's mistaken. And I think that the optics here are terrible. And the first shoe to drop is going to be a gobsmacking realization on the part of a lot of regular Americans that this university is already sitting on $54 billion. What the actual hell does that even mean? So get past that and then ask yourself, well, why then would you want to give all that money to another bunch of schools? There's nothing magical about trade schools. I love them, but they're great ones and okay ones and some that fall below, right? So what we need as a people, as taxpayers, is some kind of means testing. You can't just give money to schools any more than you can give it to any random person because they need it or want it or have dreamt of it. So really, if you got $3 billion to close the skills gap, set aside a big chunk for a national scholarship program. Carve away a little bit of that to build an infrastructure that can evaluate the individuals on their merit, right? And then carve away a bigger chunk to start telling the stories and making a more persuasive case for the 7.6 million open jobs that exist right now, most of which don't require a 4-year degree. So in a binary world, give it to the trade schools. In the real world, the trade schools, that's not going to do it. We've got to get parents and guidance counselors and kids to think differently about the opportunities that are right in front of us.
I always appreciate Mike Rowe because he always has a perfect blend of realism, but also idealism. This is what I've been trying to communicate when I'm talking about you have to take the world for what it is, not the way that you would like it to be. You have to be a realist, but you can't just stay at the realist part. It has to be working towards something. But you can't move towards that something until you recognize the way things actually are. And when he talks about the art of persuasion there, I think sometimes in our modern, very polarized and balkanized political landscape, we forget that human beings are still human beings. Yes, because of all of the brainwashing that the public institutions and education institutions have done to our youth, all of that brainwashing, it's harder to help people understand and be persuasive in any given argument, but you still must try. And that's what Mike Rowe is saying there. We have to get parents and guidance counselors on board with the fact that you shouldn't always, not never, You shouldn't always just automatically push your children to go to college. It's a very specific function for very specific trades and academic pursuits. So I think that's some really wise advice there from Mike Rowe. There needs to be a push to persuade when it comes to solving some of our labor force shortages. When we come back for one final segment, poll of the week, is Doge cooked? We'll talk about it next. Poll of the week, I asked you, is Doge dead? Gave you 3 options and the ability to say whatever you want. In third place is the work of Doge has only just begun. 9% of you said, no, it's only going to get better from here. In second place, at 40.6%, I gave you the option, it's complicated, meaning, it's not really dead, it's not really alive, it's not really meant to do the massive cuts in government spending. I'm guessing that's probably what you were probably articulating there. It's more complicated than whether it's just alive or dead. In first place, absolutely cooked, 47.8%. Let's get to your responses. Zach says, it was never alive. GOP just had something to run on. Problem is, this time, it's not just a broken promise. It is seen as a betrayal, and I fear they will suffer a huge loss in the midterms. They will do their usual fear-mongering, but I doubt it works this time. 2 weeks ago, I probably would have disagreed with you, Zach, but now, yes, I do tend to agree with you, because I think there's one of 2 ways you can look at this. Doge was never a serious effort to cut serious government spending. And I've been pretty consistent about the cuts that Doge was doing was just a handful of chicken feed in terms of the overall leviathan of the federal government. I thought perhaps the intent from Doge was to wake people up, wake the normies up as to what exactly their money, their tax money was being spent on. I thought that was maybe the function of Doge. Well, it's become clear this week with Elon Musk's commentary on what he thinks has gone wrong. That was not the intent. He thought it was going to be a lot bigger, I should say, if I can speak English, a lot bigger and a lot more impactful. Matt says, apparently Matt doesn't think I'm low IQ anymore because he keeps responding to things that I put out there. I mean, I don't know what's lower IQ. Calling somebody low IQ and then trying to get on their podcast or just ignoring them, but whatever. It was always a shell game to get stupid Trump voters to think something was being done about bloated spending. I knew it would amount to nothing. Well, aren't you just so special, Matt? Man, do your pastors, do your elders, I think maybe you are a deacon or elder at your church, do they know how you behave on social media, Matt? I think you're a guy who could probably use some accountability in that area. Matt Wells. Thank you. Jim says, as long as Republicans are needed to codify Doge cuts into law, the entire program is toast. We may see similar offices pop up in red states, but federally Doge was always dead on arrival. Again, that's kind of where I'm landing now on Doge. If it was just kind of a ploy to get headlines in order to start the process of persuading the American people that the fiscal path we're on is unsustainable because of stupid things like this, just kind of the camel's nose under the tent of starting that conversation, of starting that persuasion, then you could say that Doge was, at least to begin with, a success. But Elon Musk certainly doesn't see it that way, I don't think. Priva says, I just thought this morning Elon was used to win the election. I hope I'm wrong. Well, I can't. That's what it looks like. It's not even June. That's what it looks like. So I can't fault you for coming to that conclusion. The richest man in the world was just used and pretty much abused by the Republican Party. They firebombed his dealerships. Under constant threats he was. And he's demoralized after 5 months on the job. Dave says it was always a farce. Jay Breezy says cooked. GOP doesn't want the cuts as much as the Democrats. It's almost like a singular party, a oneness party, a uniparty. River City Ray says from its inception it was cooked. Mind Your Own Business says it was never alive. John says This is what deflated Musk's enthusiasm on political spending. To put in all this effort, then see Trump's big, beautiful bill add back so much spending, total letdown, total disrespect to him, his time, and efforts. Again, the big, beautiful bill, I think it's more complicated than that. Is this truly an effort to start the process of cutting actual, real spending? Or is it just kind of more of the same? The people in Ron Johnson and now Rick Scott's camp, they seem to think it's just more of the same. The people in Stephen Miller and Russ Vought, and yes, they work for the White House, so this is their job to say things like this, but they're also not schmucks. They tend to think that this actually does cut, and cut in meaningful ways. Craig says, other than being an extension of the president's bully pulpit, which was very important, it had no power to actually do anything. It shed some light on the roaches, but that was about it. The roaches waited it out. You know what, Craig, we're going to end on that, because I think that is a brutally precise assessment of what we've seen here. And Doge is not over. Technically, the office is still open. Hopefully, it'll make some things more efficient and less bogged down. Uncover some fraud, but in terms of sweeping changes, Doge is done. Well, we're not done this week. Tomorrow is going to be another edition of Ask or Tell Me Anything. You can ask me any question you want. Tell me any news story you think needs covered on the AM Update. Look for the pinned post at Real AM Update on X. That'll do it for Thursday. Back at it again tomorrow. I'm Aaron McIntyre, and this is the AM Update.